Hello, and welcome to episode 114 of Spurbs Herbs. Today we are going to be talking about Nourish the Yin Formulas, so something a little bit different than usual. Today we're going to explore a whole category of Nourish the Yin Chinese formulas. These formulas are used when the body fluids and essences are damaged such that the yin becomes deficient and yang relatively excessive. This can become more prevalent as we age and can affect women, especially menopausal women, more than men. And as usual, we will be adding something a little different. We're going to again discuss yin and yin vacuity. It's going to be another elevating discussion of herbs, so please join us. Before we get into that, I want to let you know we are continuing our amazing special for our courses, but it's about to end. So we are continuing our amazing special for our courses. If you use them for continuing education, professional development, or just for your own edification, we are offering 50 hours of courses for an unbelievable price. Normally, this would cost $750. However, with the special code 50CEUS, 50 CEUs, this is going to be only $325, or way less than half off. Plus, you can get a free signed copy of one of my books. Just pay for shipping and handling. That is a free copy of Integrative Pharmacology, combining modern pharmacology with integrative medicine, or playing the game, a step-by-step approach to accepting insurance as an acupuncturist. This could be up to an $80 value on top of the already more than 50% off. Just go to the webpage www.integrativemedicinecouncil.org. That's Integrative Medicine Council, COUNCIL.org/CEUS1, CEUS1 for this amazing deal. But hurry, it's going to end very soon, so please hurry. So we discussed yin and yin deficiency in episode 27. Remember, we're on 114, so almost 100 episodes ago, when we discussed Nourish the Yin herbs. We talked about Nourish the Yin herbs. Now we're talking about Nourish the Yin formulas. Let's revisit that discussion of yin and yin deficiency before we look at yin nourishing formulas. We start by asking, what is yin deficiency? There's a lot to unpack in this question. First, we need to define what yin is according to Chinese medicine, and to do that, we need to explain yang as well. Then we need to discuss the Chinese word shu, which is often translated as deficiency, though many prefer the translation of vacuity. Part of the reason why yin is so hard to explain is because it is a fundamental aspect of reality according to the Chinese worldview. Yin and yang are opposite, though complementary concepts. At its most basic, yin refers to dark or black, and yang refers to light or white. The character for yang is the sunlit side of a hill, while yin is the dark or clouded side of a hill. There are many philosophical aspects to this, as embodied in the Taiji symbol. And you know the Taiji symbol, even if you don't know that name. The Taiji symbol, colloquially known as the yin-yang symbol, shows a white and dark side intertwined with each other, each with a fatter side with a circle of the opposite color and trailing into a tail. It gives the illusion of twirling movement, indicating a constant interplay and interchangeability. In other words, each side is always changing into its opposite, and vice versa. Chapter 1 of any decent book on the basics of Chinese medicine is going to discuss yin and yang, as these are fundamental to understanding Chinese medicine both philosophically and practically. Almost everything in the body can be explained in terms of interactions of yin and yang. For example, the back is yang and the front is yin. Exterior is yang and interior is yin. Warmth is yang and cooling yin. Okay, just as a little aside here, I just want to talk about, I keep saying yang. And when I used to teach, the first class in the program. So we talked a lot about yin and yang. And one of the rules of the class was you cannot call it yang because you often hear yin and yang. Yang is not the pronunciation. Yang is close as yin, and yang are a little bit closer to the Chinese. I've studied Chinese, as you know, but I'm still not great at pronunciation. But yang is definitely much more appropriate than yang. And so students were not allowed to say yang in my class. So that's why I keep saying yin and yang, which may sound a little bit different for some people. So practically speaking, there are 4 pathological states of yin and yang in Chinese medicine. Excess of yin or yang, so either yin or yang can be excess, so that's 2 pathological states, or vacuity or deficiency of yin or yang, so that's 2 more. So those are the 4 pathological states. They can be in excess individually, or they can be in vacuity deficiency individually. Health is considered a balance of yin and yang, and therefore illness is considered an imbalance of yin and yang. Generally, we look at temperature, fluids, and general activity of the body in this context. In addition, yin can refer to the substances of the body, while yang refers to the activities of the body. Blood and essence are considered yin in nature, and yang, qi, is considered yang in nature. In fact, I was always taught that they're on a spectrum. So as you start to become deficient, first your blood is affected and you become blood deficient. If that continues, then you can become yin deficient. Yang, if you kind of starts off as qi deficiency, and if that continues, it can go into yang deficiency. I don't know now that I would necessarily agree they're on a continuum like that, but they certainly are very related. And if you are blood deficient, if you are yin deficient, you are probably also blood deficient. If you are blood deficient, you're at, I would say, greater risk of becoming yin deficient, even if that's not necessarily a continuum. Excess yang means too much heat, which can consume the fluids and create dryness and potentially overactivity. Excess yin can indicate too much cold and or fluids, which can consume the yang. Yang vacuity means there's not enough yang to warm the body. And this can appear similar to excess yin because you're cold in both of those conditions. But yin is normal in this case of yang vacuity, and yang is deficient. This is treated very differently. We need to supplement yang in this situation rather than balance yin in the case of excess yin. Yin vacuity means yin does not cool or control the yang, and the person may be warm. These last 2 can be called empty cold or empty heat, respectively. Now, another concept in Chinese medicine is we can have something called false cold and false heat. And early on in my career, I thought those were the same things as empty cold and empty heat. They are not. They are not that. I think somewhere along the lines, one of my teachers may have said that, but it isn't the case. False cold is when cold is not true cold. So it's not an empty cold. You're still cold in an empty cold, or what we call full cold. But in a false cold, you actually feel cold when you're not really cold. And same with false heat. So those are different concepts. Yin vacuity can affect many organs in the body, though the most common are the liver and kidneys. The liver and kidneys serve as the basic reserve of yin for the entire body. The stomach, heart, and lungs can also become yin deficient. Yin deficiency often develops gradually and over many years. It is not an acute condition. Yin deficiency can have many signs and symptoms according to Chinese medicine. These include insomnia, dry stools and possible constipation, dryness, something called 5 centers heat, which are the palms of the hands and soles of the feet. And then the 5th center, some people say it's the chest, some people say it's the forehead. So it kind of depends on where you get your information, but that's 5 centers heat. Something called malar flush, and I always like to talk about malar flush when I talk about symptoms of yin deficiency, because malar flush in a Western context is a very serious condition. It actually is indication of a heart valve, mitral valve dysfunction, and can be life-threatening. And it's a very florid flush of the face, a very specific kind of flush. A malar flush in Chinese medicine, and I think this is just an early translation from Chinese concepts into English, and someone knew about malar flush and said, "Hey, that kind of sounds like malar flush." It's actually kind of a weak, it's kind of a weak flush of the cheeks, and so it's sort of, it's a flush, but it's not that full reddish flush that we think in a full flush, and that's what Chinese medicine calls malar flush, not to be confused with Western medicine malar flush. Night sweats are very common with yin deficiency. A tidal fever, a fever that comes and goes, and often worse in the afternoon or evening. Scanty and yellow urine, dry cough with no sputum, a red tongue with a scanty and dry or peeling coat. So peeling is sort of a Chinese medical term here, and what it indicates is normally we have a coat on the tongue, and when we have a peeling coat, there are patches where the coat is missing. So it kind of looks like the tongue is peeling a little bit. So that's what a peeling coat is. And a deep, fine, rapid pulse. So these are all kind of standard signs and symptoms. Though some of these you might say are more geared towards liver, some are more geared towards kidneys, and sometimes more geared towards the heart. But they definitely are all part of the picture of yin deficiency. So been kind of going back and forth as deficiency and vacuity. Let's talk about that for a moment. So in a practical dictionary of Chinese medicine, Wiseman and Ye define yin vacuity or yin shu as the manifestation of insufficiency of the yin aspect and depletion of liquid and blood. When yin is vacuous, internal heat arises, hence there is low fever, heat in the hearts of the palms and soles, post-meridian heat effusion, emaciation or weight loss, night sweating, dry mouth and throat, short voidings of reddish urine, red tongue with little or no fur, and a forceless, fine, rapid pulse. So similar to what we just talked about from a different source. Yin vacuity may be focused in any of the five viscera, especially in the kidney. So that's the definition in a practical dictionary of Chinese medicine. Now, this is interesting because when I was going to school, this came out in 1998. I graduated in 1997, actually. So this came out just a couple of years after I graduated, or a year or two after I graduated. And when I was going through, everything was deficiency, deficiency, deficiency. So shu was really defined as deficiency. This book came out and tried to kind of become the lingua franca of translation between Chinese medical terms and English. And a lot of authors at that point, a lot of scholars said, okay, deficiency is probably not the best translation. Let's use vacuity. And so vacuity kind of became sort of a standard term, a standard translation for this word shu, which we have been using throughout whenever we talk about yin deficiency or yin vacuity. It is yin shu that we're talking about. However, some books said, no, I'm not buying into that. I'm still going to be able to translate it how I would like to translate it. In fact, both of our textbooks, the major textbooks, formula textbooks, are in that camp. They will go back. They generally don't use the word vacuity. They usually use the word deficiency. So you will see both used, and they go back to the same Chinese word shu. But I do agree that I think vacuity is probably technically a little bit more accurate than deficiency. When I write, I tend to write vacuity rather than deficiency. But I'm not opposed to deficiency either, because that was really, how I learned. So that's some of the differences why sometimes you might see yin deficiency, yin vacuity, but they're the same thing. So let's talk about some of the specifics, types of where the organs can actually fall and have yin deficiency, what organs can be affected by yin deficiency. So first one is lung yin deficiency. Mild lung yin vacuity is, you can see I go back and forth between deficiency and vacuity all the time. So mild lung yin vacuity is occasionally called insufficient lung yin. Signs and symptoms include dry cough, throat, and or skin, loss of voice, thirst, and in some cases, spitting up of thick sputum. So a couple things here. So first of all, it's a dry cough, throat, and or skin. Remember, skin is the manifestation of the lungs. So lungs and skin kind of are associated. So if you have dry lungs, you probably have dry skin as well. The spitting up a thick sputum, think about that as like the sputum is not very wet and loose. It's more a little bit more drier and thicker. So that's why there's thick sputum there. As it progresses, it is called Fei Lao, lung consumption with chronic cough, tidal fever, night sweats, hemoptysis or spitting up or coughing of blood, and a thin, rapid pulse. So that's lung yin deficiency. Stomach yin deficiency. Signs and symptoms include lack of appetite, irritability, dry mouth, thirst, hunger with no desire to eat, postprandial bloating, so that's after a meal, you have bloating. Postprandial means after a meal. Vomiting, hiccups, and constipation. And this often happens after severe febrile conditions, so severe fever conditions. Spleen yin vacuity can occur, though this is considered to be dual spleen qi and yin vacuity. The reason why this even has to be a note, so a couple things here. So remember, spleen and stomach are the yin and yang organs of earth, so they're connected. So that's why we're talking about the spleen in the context of the stomach yin vacuity here. And there's a question mark. There's always been kind of a question mark. Like my original teacher said, no, spleen cannot be yin vacuous. It can't be yin deficient. And the reason why is because the spleen likes it dry. So the spleen wants to be very dry and warm. And so the concept of yin vacuity when it comes to spleen is a questionable concept, which is why this is mentioned here. So and when we actually do see sort of a quote unquote spleen yin vacuity, we actually say it's spleen qi and yin vacuity, so that it's kind of affecting both. So that's why it's a little controversial, the spleen yin vacuity. Liver yin deficiency. There are two major patterns to liver yin deficiency. First is similar to liver blood deficiency with signs and symptoms of diminished visual acuity, dry and dull eyes. Remember, the eyes are the flower of the liver. Night blindness, dizziness, tinnitus, and dry nails. In addition, there is a sensation of low-grade heat. The second pattern of liver yin deficiency is liver yin vacuity with ascendant liver yang, with signs and symptoms of vertigo, tinnitus, dry mouth and throat, insomnia, red tongue, and a rapid thin pulse. And I would add probably a headache as well. Kind of a different headache than a full-blown headache, but probably a headache there as well. Actually, this one can be kind of a full-blown headache as well. So that is liver yin vacuity with ascendant liver yang. And that brings us into kidney yin deficiency. This usually occurs as a part of chronic disease processes. Since all yin comes from the kidneys, any yin vacuity can be considered to involve the kidney. Signs and symptoms include dizziness, tinnitus, weakness of the low back and legs, 5 centers heat, tidal fever, lowered sexual function, scanty dark urine, red and dry tongue, and a thin and forceless pulse. Often the kidney yin fails to nurse the liver and leads to liver yin deficiency as well. And this is called kidney and liver deficiency. So that's kidney yin deficiency. We have finally heart yin deficiency. This condition is associated with issues with the Shen or spirit. A separate category of formulas, formulas that calm the spirit, treats this condition. Formulas in the Nourish the Yin category can help this condition, but are usually not the main formulas used to treat heart yin vacuity. And those formulas that calm the spirit are actually really useful. They can have some yin deficient. They can treat yin deficiency from other organs, but they primarily treat it from the heart, and so they're very important and often used when we talked about insomnia as being one of the symptoms of yin deficiency. often a lot of the formulas we use for yin deficiency with insomnia fall under this formulas that calm the spirit. So they are actually helping the yin deficiency and also helping us sleep a little bit. And the one that I think of off the top of my head is Tianwang Bu Shindang, which is the Emperor of Heaven's pill to calm the heart. Okay, and with that, let's get into the Nourish the Yin formulas. And that's what we're talking about today. Today's topic is Nourish the Yin formulas. And Scheid et al. Actually calls this subcategory formulas that nourish and tonify the yin. It is under the category of formulas that tonify. Chen and Chen calls it yin tonifying formulas under the category of tonic formulas. So they're basically saying the same thing, just slightly different translations of it. As expected, these formulas are used to treat deficient yin and body fluids. As usual, Scheid and his team has a terrific description of this category of formulae. These formulas are used when the body fluids and essences are damaged, such that yin becomes deficient and yang relatively excessive. So it's not really excessive, but it's compared to the yin, it is relatively excessive. This type of condition may occur for many reasons and usually affects two groups of organs. When the disorder is relatively superficial, with damage predominantly to the yang fluids, it is regarded as dryness of the lungs and stomach. Damage to the yin fluids or essences, which occurs more often in connection with chronic disorders, affects the liver and kidneys, which is the focus of the formulas here. The therapeutic strategies for these disorders focus on nourishing and enriching the kidney and liver yin and regulating the storage and transformation of fluids in the lower burner as a means of tonification. The yin of the kidneys and liver serves as the basic reserve of yin for the entire body. In some texts, it is referred to as the true or fundamental yin. Many long-term problems associated with environment or lifestyle, for example, excessive sexual activity, a hard-driven lifestyle, or a dry environment with insufficient fluid intake, will, over time, deplete the kidney and liver yin, thereby damaging the true yin. Common symptoms include soreness and weakness of the lower back and legs, lightheadedness, vertigo, tidal fever with malar flesh, and again, that malar flesh is not the Western medical definition, irritability, heat in the 5 centers, night sweats, insomnia, and spontaneous emissions. Now, this is a term that's sort of unique to Chinese medicine. Spontaneous emissions basically refers to ejaculations that occur at night, so nocturnal emissions basically, and they're just called spontaneous emissions here. The tongue is usually red and thin with little or no coating. The pulse is rapid and thin. In clinical practice, such textbook presentations are often complicated, however, by concomitant signs of other problems such as yang or qi deficiency, water toxin, phlegm, or blood stasis. In such cases, care must be taken to properly assess root and branch, selecting and modifying treatment strategies and formulas accordingly. So we've talked about in the past, just as an aside here, about root and branch. And this is where Chinese medicine, we talk about conditions being root and branch. In other words, roots are what are the constitution, what are the fundamental causes of a given condition, and the branch are some of the signs and symptoms that may come off of those fundamental sort of conditions. And often, in my experience, I went into Chinese medicine going, I'm always going to treat the root, and and the root will eventually take care of the branch and all that. And that's how I came in my hubris when I was younger as an acupuncturist. And I've just over time I've realized, hey, people are coming to see you because of the branch. Their constitution may be all over the place, but that isn't what the signs and symptoms are really what's going on. Maybe causing the signs and symptoms. What they want is the signs and symptoms treated. And so now when I treat patients, I always treat the branch, make sure I take care of their branch at the same time that I'm working with their root. And that's just something I've learned over the years and to do. So rather than what I used to do initially was ignore the branch and go straight to the root. Okay, back to Scheid and his team's explanation of Nourish the Yin Formulas. The chief ingredients of the formulas in this category are, for the most part, nourishing in nature and therefore have rich cloying characteristics. They include Asparagi radix tianmendang, this is asparagus, Dendrobi herba shirhu, Polygonati adorate rhizoma yuzu, Rhamania radix shendiwang, Rhamania radix preparata shudiwang, this is prepared Rhamania, is very commonly used. Shishanta fructus wuwedza, Trionysus carapax biajae, and Testudinus plastrum guayaban. I can never differentiate. I can never remember which one's which, but one of them is tortoise and one of them is turtle shell, and those are used. Those are really strong yin tonics that I think we're trying to get away from just because of the ecological concerns about turtles and tortoises, and so you may see them in formulas, and they are going to be in some of the formulas that we talk about, and they're still used in Chinese medicine, though I think hopefully we're choosing species that are nowhere near endangered. But even with it, I think some people have some concerns about those two particular herbs, quote unquote herbs, medicinal substances. Herbs that tonify the blood, such as Angelica sinensis radix or Dongui and Paeonia radix alba by Xiao, are also used very commonly. This makes sense as blood is also an essence, and damage to one type of essence readily damages others. I was always taught that the yin and blood kind of are on a spectrum together, so that when on one side of the spectrum is as you kind of diminish the fluids, it starts to damage the blood, and you get blood deficient. And if that continues, it becomes yin deficient. On the other side of the spectrum, as you do things that damage the chi can become deficient, and eventually it gets worse and worse, and it becomes yang deficiency, yang vacuity. I think that helps in putting this in context, but isn't necessarily the full or most accurate picture of things either. But absolutely, blood and yin are connected, and so using these blood tonics are very useful. This is why herbs like Rhamania radix preparata, shudiwang, and lychee fructus gochidza can be used to tonify both substances, both yin and blood. 3 other types of ingredients are combined with the chief herbs in the formulas discussed here. Substances that tonify the yang, such as Cervi cornis cola or Lu Jiao Jiao. Now that is another very problematic herb, and one that we need to be very cautious about using. This is rhinoceros horn, and they are generally, if not endangered, close to it. So still used in Chinese medicine, shouldn't be. And there you go. So that's definitely one of those concerning herbs or medicinal substances. So that tonifies yang, as does Eucomia cortex du Zhong, Sabotii rhizoma or goji, and Cuscute semen or Tu Sidza. Because the yin and yang have the same source, deficiency of one readily leads to deficiency of the other. Furthermore, tonifying the yang is a strategy for dynamically integrating yin tonification into the body's physiology, as explained by Zhang Jie Bin in the Classified Classic. End quote. Experts in tonifying the yang invariably assist the yang from within the yin, for when yang avails itself of the assistance of yin, generation and transformation are never exhausted. It's a really interesting quote. Not sure I understand the full implications of it, but it's an interesting quote. So that was one of the 3 types of ingredients. Because yin deficiency gives rise to yang excess, which usually manifests as heat, many formulas also include herbs that clear fire or drain heat, such as Mouton cortex, Mudon-pi, Atamorena rhizoma, Zhirmu, or Philodendron cortex, Huangbai. So that's the second type of ingredient. The third type, finally, another common addition to these formulas are herbs like Poria, Fuling, Alismanus rhizoma, Xie, amomi fructa, sha ren, that is cardamom, or citri reticulata pericarpium, chen pi, that's tangerine peel, that promote the movement of fluids and qi. This is done to prevent the formulas from clogging the body's digestion and water metabolism. Even so, the formulas discussed here should be used with caution and appropriately modified in patients with weakness of the spleen and stomach. It is also important to remember that if an active pathogenic influence is still the main problem, the use of these formulas is contraindicated. In other words, if you have an external attack going on, don't use these formulas. These are to kind of after a fever or an external attack, after you recover from that, you use these to deal with the chronic damage that can happen from those attacks. Chen and Chen also discuss yin tonifying formulas. These formulas treat yin deficiency syndromes with yin tonifying herbs. Yin deficiency is often associated with the liver and kidney and involves common clinical manifestations such as emaciated appearance of the face and body, a dry throat and mouth, wu xin re, or five-center heat, insomnia, dry stools, scanty and yellow urine, steaming bones sensation, and that is a sensation that your bones feel steamy, night sweats, dry cough with no sputum, tidal fever, red cheeks, seminal emissions, soreness of the back and waist, a red tongue with a scanty and dry tongue coating, and a deep, fine, rapid pulse. So in other words, these sound very similar to what we've been talking about already. Herbs commonly used to treat yin deficiency include shu di wang or Radix rhamania preparata, mai dong or Radix ophiopegonis, that's also mai min dong, and tian dong Radix asparagus, that's asparagus, or tian min dong is also the term for it. Representative formulas include Liu Wei Di Huangwan, or 6-ingredient pill with Rhamania, Zhuo Gui Wan, or restore the left kidney pill, Dabu Yin Wan, great tonify the yin pill, and Bufei Jiao Tang, tonify the lung decoction with Scheid gelatin. And we're going to talk about all of these as we go over the individual formulas, which we're going to do right now. We're going to talk about all the formulas that are in this particular category. And we start off with 6-ingredient pill with Rhamania, or Liu Wei Di Huangwan. Usually, let me do the tone marks here. Liu Wei Di Huangwan. Usually this is, and again, my Chinese, I apologize for it. Usually this is one of the first formulas thought of in this category. This is sort of the most commonly used formula, I think, in yin nourishing formulas. It is comprised of Rhamania, Radix preparata, shu di wang, Corni, Fructus, Shanjuyu, Dioscorea rhizoma, Shanyao, Poria, Fuling, Mutan cortex, Mudan Pi, and Alismatis rhizoma, Xie. It enriches the yin and nourishes the kidneys. Chen and Chen say it nourishes liver and kidney yin. Scheid and his team say this about this formula. The representative formula of this group, it is balanced between enriching the yin and treating fire from deficiency. It's a really well-balanced formula in general, and very commonly used and modified. Lots of modifications, which we're going to talk about as well. Our next formula is Restore the Left Kidney Pill, or Zhuo Gui Wan. This formula is comprised of Rhamania, Radix preparata, shu di wang. Again, second formula with that. This is a very, very commonly used herb in these formula. Dry fried Dioscorea rhizoma, or Chao Shan Yao, Lychee fructus, Gochidze, Corni fructus, Shanjuyu, wine prepared Cyathula radix, or Jiu Chuan Yoshi, Cuscude semen, Tusidze, Cervicornis cola, Lu Jiao Jiao, Testudinous plastricola, Gui Ban Jiao. So this is using some really heavy yin tonics and yang tonics with this. You know, the cervicornis, the Lu Jiao Jiao, and the Tusidze are yang tonics. This formula nourishes the yin, enriches the kidneys, fills the essence, and augments the marrow. So one of the things when we see essence here, essence is an interesting one because it's important. It is sort of a fundamental to our life. In fact, one of the definitions of death in Chinese medicine is loss of essence. And so it's very, very important, but there's not a lot of herbs that actually build essence. My martial arts instructor said there are no vegetable matter that can actually build essence, you have to use animal matter to do that. So that's the rhinoceros horn and the testudinous plaster. Again, I think that's turtle shell rather than tortoise shell. I can never keep them separate. So this is building the essence through those animal medicinal materials. So that's this formula. This formula nourishes the yin, enriches the kidneys, fills the essence, and augments the marrow. Chen say this formula nourishes yin and replenishes marrow and jing, or essence, and tonifies the kidney. And Scheid and his team say this. So this last bit, which is on all of these formulas, Scheid says this about this formula. At the end of the chapter of all tonic formulas, it kind of has a comparison chart. And so this is sort of their bullet point as to what separates this from all the other yin tonic formulas. So they say this about this formula: focuses on treating deficiency and therefore for patients with no signs of fire. Our next formula is great tonify the yin pillar da bu yin wan. While this formula only has 4 herbs, it is to be powdered, made into honey pills. So honey now becomes an ingredient after cooking with pig vertebrae marrow and taken with salted water. So pig vertebrae marrow and salted water, you're almost thinking like bone broth here is really what we're kind of talking about. In other words, it may be more than just the 4 herbs. These herbs are, again, Rehmannia radix preparata, Shudiwan, crisp testudinous plastrum subgueban, dry fried philodendron cortex Chow Huang Bai, and wine fried Anamarena rhizoma Jiao Chow Jermu. It enriches the yin and directs fire downward. Chen similarly say it nourishes yin and clears deficiency fire. And Scheid et al. Say this formula focuses on causing the fire from deficiency to descend and less on tonifying. So this is more about the heat side of things than it is about the deficiency side of things. Our next formula is Jade Spring Pill, or Yu Chuan Wan. This formula includes Ophiopogonus radix Maimendong, Ginseng radix Renshen, Poria Fuling, Astragalus radix Huangqi, Mume fructus Wu Mei, Glycericerae radix Gansao, that's licorice, Trichosanthus radix Tianhua Fen, and Pararia radix Ge. So we finally have one without Shudiwang as the main ingredient. Its actions include augmenting the qi, nourishing the yin, clearing heat, and generating yang fluids. Chen actually puts this formula in the subcategory of nourishing and moistening formulas under the category of dryness relieving formulas, and say its actions include generating body fluids to relieve thirst and nourishing yin to moisten dryness. Scheid and his team say this formula focuses on tonifying the spleen and lungs, generating fluids, and adjusting the water pathways. Our next formula is Hidden Tiger Pill, or Hu Jian Huan. The herbs comprising this formula include wine-fried philodendron cortex, or Zhu Chow Huang Bai, wine-fried Anamarena rhizoma, Jiao Chow Jermu. Both of those are very cooling herbs, so we already know this is going to help heat. Rehmannia, here we go back to Rehmannia radix preparata, or Shudiwang, wine-fried testudinous plastrum, Jiao Chow Guiban, that's the turtle shell again, Paeonia radix alba by Shao. Here's one that is really illegal, and I don't think you can get it in the United States. Tigris os, or hugu, that's the tiger bone. That's tiger bone. Cinnamorai herba, or swo yang, Zingiberis rhizoma ganjiang, that's dried ginger, and Citrus reticulated pericarpium champi, that's the tangerine pill. This formula enriches the yin, directs fire downward, and strengthens the sinews and bones. Chen say it nourishes yin and lowers and clears deficiency fire and strengthens sinews and bones. And Scheid and his team say this formula is also for dizziness, tinnitus, spontaneous emissions, and urinary incontinence. And I should say, with the hugu, the tiger bone, you can't get in. I said you can't get it in the U.S. That's not true. Of course you can get it in the U.S. I'm just saying it's not legal in the U.S. It should be able to be gotten in the U.S. and elsewhere. Our next formula is Great Creation Pill, or Da Zhao Wan. This formula contains hominis placenta zihe cha. Okay, right there we're into some interesting territory. That's human placenta. And that's interesting too. That's one that's not, I don't think it's technically banned, but you can't import it. At least you couldn't import it. And there's definitely some concern about it is usually freeze dried, and so it should be safe, but who knows? I can tell you early on when I was a student, I used it on a couple of cases, and it's a really powerful herb. I have not really used it in my practice at all, and I don't think I could get it anymore. I do remember early in my career, when I switched over to granules, I could get granules of this. I don't think I can get them anymore from any of my sources, and I have a lot of sources for it. So very difficult to get. I'm not sure it's a great choice anymore either. Very powerful herb, but or medicinal substance, I should say. Crispy Testudinous plastrum, Testudinous plastrum, which is Su guiban. That's the turtle shell that we have here. Philodendron cortex huang vai, Eucomia cortex du zhong. That's actually a yang tonic. Acaranthus radix nioshi, Ophiopogonus radix maimendong, Asparagi radix tianmendong. That's asparagus. Rhamania radix shendiwang. So we didn't have the Rhamania radix preparata, which is what we've had in almost all our formulas so far, but we have its unprepared form, shengdiwang, sheng meaning fresh, Rhamania. And that actually, rather than being a yin tonic in the category of yin tonic herbs, it's actually in the blood cooling herbs, but it also helps with the yin and it cools the blood. It's actually a really good herb. And then ginseng radix renshen. So definitely a lot of other tonification happening here. This formula tonifies the kidneys, enriches the yin, drains heat, and anchors the yang. And actually, Chen does not have this formula at all in their book, not in any other category or anything. So it's just not part of that of their book at all. And usually, when you see a discrepancy like that, usually means it's probably not one of the most commonly used formulas. And you can see why. This would be hard to source in the U.S. I'm sure you can. There's probably substitutions, but as written here, it's probably very difficult to get in the U.S. Scheid and his team say this formula is especially useful for consumptive disorders with emaciation. Of course, whenever you see consumptive disorders, you want to think about things like, oh my God, the term just flew right out of my head. Oh my God, it's when we say consumptive disorder, there actually was it used to be called consumption, and now it starts with a T. Someone help me here. It's very serious.
Tuberculosis?
Yes, thank you. Tuberculosis. Yeah, I'm getting older and these words keep floating out of my mouth. Thank you, Marpo. I appreciate that. Tuberculosis is when we think of consumptive disorders, we think tuberculosis. Okay, the next formula, which is this formula is an interesting one. It was one of the favorites of one of my teachers, so we learned a lot about this formula. Linking decoction, Yi Guan Jian. This formula enriches the yin and spreads the liver qi, and contains Rhamania radix shengdi huang. So again, this is the cooling blood form of Rhamania. Lychee fructus gochidza, Clinia adenophoria radix or Shashen, Ophiopogonus radix maimendong, Angelica sinensis radix dongui, and Tusindon fructus chuanlienza. And I'll tell you, I mean, my teacher absolutely loved this. It was Zev Rosenberg's just one of his favorite formulas, at least at the time. We all kind of go through phases sometimes as professionals. But he loved this formula, and it's just a great formula because his point was we often see patients who are yin deficient and have liver qi stagnation, and so this is a great formula for that. Chen so it nourishes kidney and liver yin and regulates liver qi. And Scheid and his team say this formula is not for pain and distension from dampness or phlegm, just as a little explanatory, but a really interesting formula. Our next formula, 2 solstice pill, or Zhi Wan. This formula has only 2 herbs, Ligustri lucidi fructus nugenza and Eclipta herba mohanlian. It tonifies and benefits the liver and kidneys. Chen say it tonifies the kidney and nourishes the liver and nourishes yin and blood. And Scheid et al. Say this, Scheid and his team say this formula is also for chronic bleeding problems. So this is interesting. Usually we have formulas that have multiple herbs. We have some 1 herb and 2 herb formulas, and this is one of those 2 herb formulas. My experience is when we have these very small formulas, they usually get added into other formulas, and often I'll see Huan added in with other formulas for specific patterns of conditions. I've seen that many times. So there you go. Our next formula, which we actually talked about in one of our previous actually, we've talked about a couple of these, I think, but this one has also had a podcast before, so preserves on it. It's lily bulb decoction to preserve the metal, or bai he gu jin tan. The ingredients for this formula include lily bulbus, bai he, that's why it's lily bulb decoction. Romania retic sheng diwang, so it's not shu diwang. However, our next herb is shu diwang, Romania retic preparata shu diwang. So that's kind of rare that we use both shengdi and shudi in the formula. Ophiopogonus radix mymendong, Scrophularia radix xuanxian, Fritillaria bulbus beimu, Platycody radix jiegong, Angelica sinensis radix dongui, Paeonia radix alba baishao, and Glycericerae radix preparata jirigansao. That's honey fried licorice. This formula nourishes the yin, moistens the lungs, transforms phlegm, and stops coughing. Chen again puts this formula not in the yin nourishing formulas, but in the subcategory of nourishing and moistening formulas under the category of dryness relieving formulas, and say its actions include generating body fluids to relieve thirst and nourishing yin to moisten dryness. They say it nourishes yin and moistens the lung and dissolves phlegm and stops coughing. And Scheid et al. Say, and his team say, this formula is for internal dryness of the lungs. This formula focuses on nourishing the yin. There you go. That is lily bulb decoction to preserve the metal, or baihe gujintang. And you can see right in the name, by the way, lily bulb decoction to preserve the metal. The lungs are part of the metal element, so that's where that kind of comes in. That's why it says preserve the metal, and why it pertains to the lungs. Our next formula, and we're getting towards the end here, tonify the lungs decoction with acid gelatin, or bu fei jiao tang. Trying to do the toe marks and probably emphasizing them a little bit too much. So bu fei jiao tang. This formula is comprised of aconite cola, or jiao, that is acid glue. So again, that is animal product. Aristolochiae fructus madoling, dry fried Armanaceae semen, or Chaoxing ren, that is actually apricot seed. Dry fried Arctii fructus, Chao Nio bangza. Dry fried glutinous rice, or Chao Nuo mi. And Glycericerae radix preparata, or jirigansao, that's the honey fried licorice. It nourishes the yin, tonifies the lungs, controls coughing, and stops bleeding. Chen say it nourishes yin and tonifies the lung and arrests coughing and stops bleeding. So again, very similar actions. And finally, Scheid in their end note and his team say this formula focuses on clearing heat and stopping bleeding. And you may go, well, stopping bleeding is weird. Why is that all in this sort of thing? But one of the concepts in Chinese medicine is when there's heat in the blood becomes restless and can bleed. And so the idea here is you need to clear heat and stop bleeding when that situation occurs. Our next formula is decoction to enrich yin and direct fire downward. Zi yin jiang huo tang. This is a large formula We're running out of time, so I'm not going to read all these. But let's face it, it does have Sheng Diwang in here as well as Shu Diwang. It's actually ginger juice fried Romania. So it has both of those. It has a lot of other yin tonics in here as well. It's a very large formula. We're going to move on. It is used to enrich the yin, nourish the blood, and direct fire downward. Interestingly, Chen and Chen considers this formula to be a deficiency heat clearing formula under the category of heat clearing formula. So this is not a yin nourishing formula according to Chen and Chen either at this point. They say it nourishes yin, descends fire, and tonifies qi and blood. And Scheid and his team say this formula is for consumptive disorders such as wasting and thirsting and steaming bones. So that sounds kind of weird. Wasting, thirsting, steaming bones. Steaming bones disorder is what is often considered part of tuberculosis. Wasting and thirsting is often associated with diabetes. So they're saying here that wasting and thirsting is also considered a consumptive disorder. Our next formula is precious jade syrup, or Chong Yu Gao. No, excuse me, Gao, not Gao, Gao. This formula has 4 herbs: ginseng, radix, renshen, Romania, radix, sheng diwang, poria, fuling, and good quality honey by me. It enriches the yin, moistens the lungs, augments the qi, and tonifies the spleen. Chen and Chen also places this formula in the subcategory of nourishing and moistening formulas. They say it nourishes yin and moistens the lung, and tonifies qi and strengthens the spleen. And Scheid and his team say this formula is a tonifying formula for long-term use, not during an external pathogenic invasion. Our next formula is Preserve Vista's Pill Ju Jing Wan. This formula has 3 herbs: Cuscude, Semen Tusidza, Romania Rex Preparata Shudiwang, and Plantagenous Semen Chi Chenza. Added to a soup made from poria, fuling, and akori, tatarinoi, rhizoma, or shir chang pu. It tonifies and nourishes the liver and kidneys, enriches the yin, and improves the vision. And Chen Chen actually do not have this formula at all in their book as well. Scheid and his team say this formula focuses on tonifying the kidneys below and draining pathogenic water from above. Our next formula is Benefit the Stomach Decoction, or Yi Wei Tang. This formula consists of Glenia adenophora, radix sha shen, Ophiopogonus radix, Mymendong, Romania radix, Sheng Diwang, that's fresh, Romania, dry fried Polygonati adorate rhizoma, or Chao Yu Zhu, and Saccharum crystallisatum, or Bing Tong. That sounds like crystallized sugar. It benefits the stomach and generates fluids. And Chen Chen again does not include this formula in their book at all. Scheid and his team say this formula is also for dizziness, ulcerations in the oral cavity, picky eating in children, as well as dental problems. Interesting. Let's talk about some other yin nourishing formulas. So Chen Chen has several other formulas in the subcategory, not included in Scheid at all. Several of these are considered modifications of 6-ingredient pill with Romania, Liao Wei, Diwang, according to Scheid et al. These include lithium fruit, chrysanthemum, and Romania pill, Chiju, Dihuangwan, Adamarina, philodendron, and Romania pill, Zhibai, Dihuangwan. Both of these are quite commonly used. Capital Qi pill, Du Qi Wan, Eight Immortal pill for longevity, Ba Xian Chang Shou Wan, also known as Ophiopogonus Shashandra Romania pill, or My Wei Dihuangwan. Enrich the kidneys and improve vision decoction, Zi Shen Mingmu Tang, and Romania pill to nourish yin, or Zi Yin Dihuangwan. Chen Chen also have a couple that are not modifications of 6-ingredient pill of Romania, Liao Wei, Dihuangwan. One of these is the very, very large formula Dendrobium pill for night vision, or Shihu Guangguan, which soothes the liver and calms liver wind and nourishes yin and brightens vision. And the other one is Nourish the Kidney to unblock the ears decoction, Zi Shen Tang Tang, which nourishes the kidney and tonifies the blood. All right, let's talk about the science of these formulas. Chen discusses pharmacological effects and clinical applications. Yin tonifying formulas tonify yin and generate body fluids. They primarily treat disorders associated with kidney, liver, lung, and stomach yin deficiencies. These formulas treat an extremely wide range of variety of disorders, and the summary below is only a brief attempt to identify the most common and significant applications. Reproductive disorders. Many yin tonifying formulas have marked influence on the reproductive system and have been used successfully to treat sexual and reproductive disorders such as sexual dysfunction, male infertility, and female infertility. The mechanisms of action vary, but have been attributed in part to the stimulation and regulation of both male and female sex hormones. Exemplar formulas include Liu Diwan 6-ingredient pill with Romania, Zogui restore the left kidney pill, and Xian Tong 2 immortal decoction. Gynecological disorders. Many yin tonifying formulas have marked effects in treating gynecological disorders. For example, menopausal symptoms may be alleviated with Liu Diwan 6-ingredient pill with Romania, Qiju Dihuangwan lithium fruit chrysanthemum and Romania pill, and Xian Tong 2 immortal decoction. Premenstrual syndrome may be alleviated with Yiguanjian or linking decoction. Uterine bleeding and amenorrhea may be treated with Zogui restore the left kidney pill. Respiratory disorders. Some yin tonifying formulas have been used effectively to treat lung disorders. For example, Liu Diwan 6-ingredient pill with Romania has been used for bronchial asthma. Dabu Yinwan, Great Tonify the Yin pill, has been used for pulmonary tuberculosis. And Bufei Jiaotang, Tonify the Lung decoction with acai gelatin, has been used to treat cough due to various causes, such as asthma, bronchiectasis, bronchitis, pulmonary tuberculosis, and whooping cough. Gastrointestinal disorders. Some yin tonifying formulas have been used successfully to treat gastrointestinal disorders, such as atrophic gastritis, peptic ulcer, and chronic esophagitis. The mechanism of action has been attributed in part to enhanced protection of the gastric mucosa. Exemplar formulas include Liu Diwan 6-ingredient pill with Romania and Yiguanjian linking decoction. Diabetes mellitus. Many yin tonifying formulas successfully treat diabetes mellitus. Pharmacologically, these formulas effectively decrease plasma glucose levels. Furthermore, some of these formulas continue to exert hypoglycemic effects in cases in which the pancreas has been surgically removed. Clinically, formulas that have been used successfully in the treatment of diabetes mellitus include Liu Diwan 6-ingredient pill with Romania, Zhibai Diwan Anamarena philodendron and Romania pill, and Maiwei Diwan Ophiopagonis Shishandra and Romania pill. Hypertension. Many yin tonifying formulas have a marked influence on the cardiovascular system. Specifically, formulas that have been used to treat hypertension include Liu Diwan 6-ingredient pill with Romania, keep seeing that, Zhibai Diwan Anamarena philodendron and Romania pill, Qiju's Dihuangwan lithium fruit chrysanthemum and Romania pill, and Yiguanjian linking decoction. Kidney disorders. Some yin tonifying formulas have shown nephroprotective effects, such as increasing blood perfusion to the kidneys, improving kidney function, and reducing the presence of protein and uric acid in the urine. Clinically, Liu Diwan 6-ingredient pill with Romania has been used to treat chronic nephritis, nephrotic syndrome, chronic renal failure, and periodic paralysis. Zhibai Diwan Anamarena philodendron and Romania pill has been used to treat nephrotic syndrome, and Qiju Dihuangwan lithium fruit chrysanthemum and Romania pill has been used to treat chronic nephritis. Liver disorders. Some yin tonifying formulas have hepatoprotective effects against damage induced by such substances as carbon tetrachloride, thioacetamide, and prednisolone. Clinically, Liu Dihuangwan 6-ingredient pill with Romania has been used to treat chronic hepatitis, Wan 2 ultimate pill for hepatitis, and Yiguanjian linking decoction for liver disease such as hepatitis, liver cirrhosis, and liver cancer. Thyroid disorders. Liu Diwan 6-ingredient pill with Romania has been used successfully to treat hyperthyroidism and thyroid adenoma. Yiguanjian linking decoction has been used to treat hyperthyroidism. That's it for the sciences. Let's talk about drug-herb interactions. Several of the herbs in these formulas have drug-herb interaction concerns. A large epidemiological study, N equals 1,795, so that's very large, showed increased adverse effects in patients taking Chaihu, Zhizhe, Wuweizi, Shu and Shengdiwang, so we've talked a lot about those, Mutong and Qetianzi, with clozapine, quetiapine, and olanzapine. I believe those are all antipsychotics, I think. Well, several herbs show potential for cytochrome P450 interactions. These are all level D or minimal evidence. They're either expert opinion in animals or bench research. In other words, nothing clinically. These herbs include Maimendong, Sheng and Shudiwang, and Tianmendong. So you might need to be concerned about cytochrome P450 interactions, but we're not sure. Concerns in general about these formula. Chen discussed several general cautions in regards to tonic herbs and formulas. It is important to differentiate between deficient and excess conditions when considering the use of tonic herbs. While tonic herbs are prescribed to supplement deficiencies, clearing or draining herbs are used to eliminate excess conditions. Tonic herbs should not be used in excess conditions, as they will only worsen the condition. Clearing or draining herbs must not be used in cases of deficiency, as they will aggravate the condition by draining vital substances. Frequent or long-term use of tonic herbs may create stagnation. Therefore, tonic herbs should be combined with herbs that strengthen the spleen, harmonize the stomach, and move qi and blood to ensure minimal side effects. Tonic formulas are most effective when taken on an empty stomach or before meals for better absorption. And while I totally agree with that as a prescription, I always like to say because sometimes my patients will ask, well, should I take this before or after meal, whatever? I'm like, I don't care. Yes, I do think there's better absorption. I do think it's better to take these on an empty stomach before meals. However, I think it's more important for you to actually take them. And if I give you a whole bunch of different rules to follow, the chances of most of my patients being compliant go down. So I tend not to have any of these things. I don't tell my patients, even though I do believe that you can increase the efficacy by taking this on an empty stomach, but maybe that efficacy is only 10% or 20%. That's still far less than if they didn't take it because they forgot to take it before meal and they don't know what to do, and so they decide to hold off until the next meal, all that sort of stuff. I'd rather just not have any rules on it. Okay, we made it through. So that was today's exploration of another formula category. We started by discussing something a little different by re-examining yin and yang vacuity. Then we tucked into the Nourish the Yin Formula subcategory and found it is an important and very frequently used category. And it is relatively safe with just a few general cautions. All in all, this was another informative and useful discussion of Chinese formulae. In 2 weeks, we're going to be looking at another single Chinese herb, Bu Zhi Zao, or Centipede herba, or small centipede herb, which is great. I mean, centipede herb, I kind of like the whole thought of that. This herb is a relatively obscure herb in the Chinese medical subcategory of warm acrid herbs that release the exterior under the category of release the exterior herbs. Not a very commonly used herb. In fact, it isn't even included in several of our usual textbooks, but it can be useful. And as always, we will look at something a little different. Please join us in 2 weeks as we explore another of our medicine's interesting herbs. And I'd like to say thank you very much for listening. If you like this podcast, I thank you, and I really appreciate if you were to do just a little favor, either subscribe to our podcast in your favorite podcast app, or give us a 5-star review. Even for thinking about that, we appreciate it. Thank you very much. And don't forget our amazing continuing education deal that is about to end. www.integrativemedicineCouncil.org/CEUS1. And you can always get in touch with me at drgreg@spurbsherbs.com or at our website, www.spurbsherbs.com. And as usual, we have our bibliography. And thank you very much.